everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the 26th episode of Flowers and Friends. Can you believe it, Kara?
26 episodes have happened so far, Anna.
I
What a
know.
fun time that we have had with this.
We've met so many great people. We've learned so much, and mostly we've had a great time talking about flowers with our friends. Hi, everyone. I'm Ana Galena. I'm one of the co hosts of this incredible talk show, Flowers and Friends. Kara here is with us, and we're missing Dionne. But Kara,
No,
yes,
we're missing Dionne today. So Dionne is hosting her own retreat, and we just wish her so much luck. I know she's having so much fun there.
I've seen
Welcome.
her pictures. It's incredible, isn't it? I
Right.
wish I was there.
I know, right? And she had Lori Siebert there, which Lori was one of our guests too that we've had on this show. It's been so fun to see them meet in real life,
I know.
Hello,
Yes.
I'm Kara Jameson. I'm one of the co-hosts for the Flowers and Friends talk show for Bloom TV Network. We have a really fun show in store for you
Mhm.
today. We are going to talk to Tom and Sarah of the Grateful Gardeners all about flower farming and aquaponics. I am
I'm so
very
excited.
excited. I have so many questions. So let's get into the show today.
Yay.
Woohoo!
How exciting is this to learn about dahlias? I
I
know this is
know.
going to come really handy to you, but I think to everyone because everybody wants to grow dahlias.
Yeah,
I've
well,
told you.
and you know what's really fun about these Flowers and Friends talk show? You know, a lot of people are watching the reruns, the replays
Yes.
on this, and so this will be a really fun show to air even next spring. You know, when we start planting dahlias
Mhm.
again, and people can know like how they can increase how many flowers they could potentially grow. Look at our comments, Anna. Oh man, I want to say hello. Let's
From
see.
Spain, San Diego, Tijuana. I
Yeah,
see
hey
Carmen there.
Carmen, Linda, Patsy, Pilar, hello, welcome,
Let us
welcome.
know where you're watching us from, please, because you know we love that. And well,
Yes.
why don't we talk about last week's
Okay.
episode? It was huge.
Yeah. A lot of people really liked watching us make pumpkins. Tell me about your pumpkin. How's your pumpkin doing?
No, I gave it to my sister.
Oh, you
After the
did.
show, she immediately was like, "Do you think you have some leftover flowers?" And I'm like, "Do you want my pumpkin with flowers?" And she's
I
like,
know,
"Yes,
right?
please."
Right. So I have my pumpkin right here. It because it's a dried flowers on there, and this pumpkin will last forever. You know, it's like the pumpkin that keeps on giving here. So I work with a garden apron company, and they were
Uh-huh.
having a contest of who could do a no carve pumpkin, and they were going to donate $200 to a food bank
Ooh.
in the person's name that won. And so I was like, I just made this for the Flowers and Friends talk show. So I submitted it, and thanks to all my flower friends, I won.
Yes,
So
you
we get
won. You said it so slowly. She
to,
won. First
yeah,
prize.
yeah. So we get to help a food bank out, and then my church contacted me, and they're having a dinner this weekend, and someone from there was like, do you have any fall decorations? And I was like, yeah, I just Flowers and Friends talk show came in handy. There we go. All right, so Anna, let's show everyone a quick clip of
Yes.
last week's show.
One of the things I like the most about fall with fresh flowers is all the different textures you get. For me,
Uh-huh.
a fall flower needs to have as many textures as you can. So I also have from other flowers I purchased some millet. I love this.
Oh yes. Uh-huh. That's a fun one to grow.
So what I'm gonna do is I already have my foliage. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this ruscus to give height and set limits for my flowers. And then this time I'm going to arrange my flowers in groups. And I'm gonna have like a group of sunflowers, a group of marigolds, just to make it different and not like the typical mixed flower
I think
arrangement.
when you slow down enough to do things like this, you're really allowing yourself to feel and work through the season and it not go by so quickly. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
Kara, yeah, and Kara, when you're out digging in the dirt and you're planting, it really seems like it slows down the season because you're working in it rather than through the season. You're literally immersing yourself in the time of year and in a much simple, smaller way. I feel like that's what home styling and home decor will do for you.
I'm gonna try to dry these this year and see what it looks like. And boy, it's like the perfect purple pop. And then here's the top of my pumpkin. I dried some dahlias that I grew this year. This was a pretty purple one that dried this beautiful, like deep cranberry.
Oh wow.
We've got some orange dahlias. This is dahlias. These are dahlias, right? Oh, yay. Oh, hello. I think we lost Ana there for just a second. So last week's show was just so fun making those pumpkins. Today, we have Bloom TV experts, Tom and Sarah of the Grateful Gardeners that are going to join us. Let's bring them on screen and say hello.
Hey.
Hey there.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for
Thank
being here
you.
today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are so excited to talk with you and hear about your story, your flower farming journey, what you do with it, and even your aquaponics journey, which I am really, really excited to hear about. Tom and Sarah is a husband and wife team who grows an organic cut flower farm in Maryland, about 30 miles from Washington, D.C. Is that right?
That's
Amazing. And this year, you guys have undertaken a really big expansion. You have gone from 1 acre to 34 acres. Really?
That's correct. That's
Wow.
correct.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So welcome. We're very excited to have
you.
today. Hey, Ana.
I'm back.
You're back. Beauty of live
Hi.
streaming.
Yeah. But I'm back. Hi, Tom and Sarah. So happy to be here with you.
Yes, thanks, Ana.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yep.
So Tom and Sarah, tell us like your backstory. How did you get into flower farming and where you're at today?
Yeah.
I feel like we tell this story all the time. Like
we do.
But yeah,
It's
okay.
important.
Yeah.
It's important to always,
Yeah.
always remember your roots. That's what
Yes.
it's important. So my mom, Diana, she has grown dahlias for 30 years or so. We used to live in Canby, Oregon, which when I was a kid, like I was like 9, 10 years old, and that's the home of Swan Island dahlias, and which is a really famous grower and provider of dahlia tubers. And my mom just fell in love with them there, which is easy to do. And she's been growing them ever since. And I, of course, as a kid, teenager, young man, I had no interest in any of that stuff.
Little did you know.
I know, right? It's kind of strange how these things happen. But so, and one of the goals that my mom had, so she's, almost 70 years old now, and she's ready. She's been retired and moved on from her career. One of the things she wanted to do was to create her own flower farm as a retirement thing. Like, didn't have to worry necessarily about making a huge amount of money from it, but that's what she wanted to do, is to grow flowers professionally. And so she has now done that. She has her own farm in Colorado called Rocky Mountain Blooms. Give her a follow if you can.
Nice. Hey.
So yeah, she's got her own flower farm. And she took the Floret course from Aaron Benzikin, the famous Floret course. And she was so excited about it, and she wanted to share it with us. She was like, "Hey, you guys got to see some of these videos. They're so amazing, the production values." And we're like, "Okay, sure." So we started watching, and we're like, "Wow, that does seem kind of cool." That seems like an interesting. I mean, anybody could do this.
How hard could this be?
How hard could it be? And so we went home like immediately and started just buying the basic stuff, the heat mats, the lights, the things to get seeds started indoors and really just the beginning stages. And honestly, after that, you don't really need much. You need some soil, like a raised bed or a field, cut a small field. And so we started down that path, and
but we did
it hooked
so.
us.
Yeah, we did so with a lot of impediments in the way. So, not really impediments, but just life.
Right.
We both were working full-time jobs. We lived in a house on a postage stamp yard, which we were never going to be able to grow on. So we didn't have a space to grow. And we had a teenager, a preteen, and a grade school age child at home that needed our attention. So there were a lot of reasons why it could have a lot of reasons why initially for us, it was just like, this is just something that we can do as a hobby in whatever free time we had.
And together
That it would be ours, and, wouldn't be, because most of our time had been spent, either working full time, and then on weekends we were running around to different, kids events. It was all we did. And we're kind of like, this is not really all that satisfying if our whole life is just these two things. We want something more. And it was a second marriage for us. And we were, very aware of, some of the problems in just getting completely immersed in childcare in the first marriages, and not really making out and carving out time as a couple to do something really soul fulfilling that was just ours. So it was very intentional for us we worked really hard to find space to grow on, even though it ultimately ended up being at my mother's place. We had explored several different options initially, which didn't work out because we were just determined that we were going to find a place.
Yeah.
My mom's was sort of just like a fallback option, which was free.
Right.
But it still meant that for the first 2 years of us growing, we didn't live there, but we had to go every day. So we'd work full time, get in our car, go in the evenings to tend to the gardens, which were tiny little spaces.
Oh, wow.
And then go home and then tend to the kids and do all the things. So it couldn't have lasted and been sustainable to continue to do that. We knew we had to live on the land that we were growing on. So we ended up buying my mom's house from them because they were really looking to scale down. So we ended up doing that, and they ended up moving they created sort of a in-law suite in the garage space of this small acre. And we were like, okay, an acre's not ideal, but we still don't know what we're doing. We need to learn how to do this first, and we can figure out how to lease space, or maybe we'll move someday. And we just didn't really, it wasn't all plotted out. Let's just put it that way. But it ended up evolving fairly quickly.
Hey. Wow.
And this was your previous place, right? Not the current farm that you're on?
No, not the current life. Yeah, no, the current life is basically all flowers all the time.
So it's, it's just kind of funny when you look back at all the little events of, propelled you in certain directions. Obviously the path is never linear and never straight. It's always like, okay, well, we had this fail, so we kind of had to move in this direction. Or it's like you ran up against, we just ran out of space. There's only so much full sun space on that existing property, and we were like, we're running, we have none left, and so that was a dilemma. And then the big thing that happened was so just to preface this, I think this is known amongst people who know us, but if they don't, we're very much environmentalists. We're very much about protecting the environment. I was born on Earth Day. I don't think I can be any other.
Oh, that is so great. Yes.
I know. I Earth Day birthday. It's the most amazing thing ever. I love it. So I don't think I could be anything other than an environmentalist. I just have to care that much about it, right? So, but we both do, and so one of the things from the very beginning we've been focused on is how do we grow more sustainably, more regeneratively, organically, whatever it is we can do. And I started looking into growing techniques and ultimately stumbled upon hydroponics and then aquaponics, and essentially growing, in water, indoors, in controlled environments where you can, enhance some of these sustainable sorts of approaches. And so once I started down that road, so my background is I'm a PhD scientist. I was doing research for a long time, and I had a lot of experience writing grants from that. And one of the things you can do in agriculture, obviously, is you can get grant funding to do a lot of different projects. things.
Okay.
And so I started writing grants. I started doing the research and saying, hey, nobody's looking at floriculture and aquaponics and a little bit in hydroponics, but definitely not in aquaponics. And so I started doing that research and I started writing grants, and it's a slog, and I got a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
Lots of rejections.
Lots of people saying like, this will never work.
This will never work. Why are you doing this?
It's not a mainstream thing. It's not interesting or just
it's not very useful.
You'll hear it all. I mean, anybody who,
right.
if it's new and it's not the way things are done, they're going to probably, throw shade, so it happens.
So one day someone says, yes, I like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Persistence is the key here.
Yeah. So Tom was just like, I was the one in the background being like, why are they talking? Why are they saying those things about,
She takes personal
offense. I did. I would get so irritated. And Tom was just like, that's okay. I'm just going to, it was literally like nothing was going to deter him. He would stay up like a college student all night. I'd get up in the morning and he would still be sitting at the computer writing grants. And then when he got a rejection, I would be infuriated and he would be irritated, but then he'd be like,
that's part of the process.
Well, now I know what to do to change it.
Right.
I mean, he just didn't, whereas I would have been like, forget it. This is not working.
I love it.
So
that's the best part of teamwork. I mean, you guys have each other to complement, and that's something a lot of people don't have, because a lot of people are doing it on their own. So can you tell us more about aquaponic farming? Because like me, a lot of our viewers don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, first of all, just confuse it with hydroponics. They just think it's basically the same thing. And a lot of people do know what hydroponics is, which essentially is just growing plants in water, rather than in a soil medium. So typical field farming, we all know what that is. We're growing in soil, we're irrigating, we're adding fertilizer, we're doing the very traditional agricultural methods that have been done for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. Hydroponic and aquaponic farming. Yeah. So you're growing in water, and in hydroponics, you're adding the nutrients yourself as a farmer. You're saying, I need to add nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. I need to add micronutrients. I need to add all of these different things to make the plant happy and grow, because water and CO2 and sunlight are not enough for most plants. There are some plants that are pretty easy to grow.
Like lettuce.
Lettuce needs basically nitrogen, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And that's why vegetable farming has really taken off with these methods, because a lot of the leafy greens and the tomatoes and the cucumbers and things, they just don't need a whole lot to grow. And it's probably also why flowers have been late to the party when it comes to these techniques, because the flowers do require a lot more than typical vegetable farming. So the benefits of these systems are, first of all, huge amounts of water savings, because typically water is recirculated and reused. And so you're only really losing it to evaporation, maybe a little bit in transpiration. And so aquaponics specifically, 95% water savings. So you're using, it's a huge amount. I mean, in drought-starved areas, like places where there's not a lot of tidal water, like California, these kinds of techniques are extremely valuable. So the water savings alone is a huge environmental factor.
Okay.
The other thing is we are literally not growing in soil. So you're eliminating the whole soil erosion aspect of, essentially traditional agriculture, right? Like, no, we only have so much topsoil left. The way that it's been practiced, we have been eroding that for decades. And so, one of the main issues of, climate change, all of these different things, is something called land degradation, which basically just means we're just losing arable, farmable land. And so we have to start moving away from those techniques, or at least revamping those techniques. But this is one way where we're not growing in soil at all. We're growing in either water itself, or we're growing in a soil-like medium, either clay pellets or coco coir, more sustainable things. So basically the benefit, so that's one benefit, is the lack of soil. We're not doing soil erosion. Eliminate weeding altogether.
Right. Oh, that's nice.
Like any farmer who hears that's like, what?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many hours and backbreaking hours I spent in 95-degree heat this summer, sweating my off, pulling weeds out of the dahlia beds, and literally cursing my way through it. It was just awful.
It's the bane of our existence.
So I have a question. Well, first I wanted to show, we have a couple photos that we can
Sure.
show of your aquaponics here. Let's see. Let me put this one up right here. So
while you're showing that picture, Kara, I just wanted to also emphasize that because I don't think Tom got to this yet, and certainly we could talk about it. But he ultimately ended up getting a grant from the state of Maryland for $200,000.
Wow,
Whoa.
that's amazing.
And that was, you know, it was like he'd gotten a small grant from USDA SARE program for about $15,000 to just basically ramp up his DIY system on our small farm. To do some experimentation. And with that, he was able to then get the proof and the data to support that you could really have a lot of plants blooming in aquaponics. Even in a DIY, we got dahlias. He got like 15 different varieties to bloom there, of which we had been told that'll never work.
Wow.
So that was a proof of concept thing. And he used that data then to apply for this other large grant from the state of Maryland. And he got it. So that was the thing that changed everything, because once that money was available to actually build it, we were like, well, where the hell are we going to put this thing?
Right.
Because we live on 1 acre. how are we going to do this? And it became pretty clear that these things collided at a moment when we were also thinking about expansion. I was wanting to figure out how to get out of my job. He had already quit his job and was focusing on the farm full time. So anyway, all the universe, all the planets were starting to align, and but it was the grant that helped build this system that we currently are going to show pictures of, and is brand new to us. But I just wanted people to know that persistence does pay off on grant funding, and that's one of our goals as a business, is to help more farmers get access to this money, which it seems almost inaccessible. And it's very hard to get, and it shouldn't be as hard as it is. But anyway, that's
right. So I believe I have the photo right here. Is this the machine you guys are talking about?
Well, so those are the fish tanks, and those are the fish, and you can kind of see those are koi, and so koi are a very common fish to use in these systems, primarily because they're super hardy. They can tolerate temperature ranges from 35 degrees to 95 degrees, which is a huge range, right?
Right.
So they're really hardy. They'll eat almost anything, and they live a long time. And so they're a really good fish. Now, koi are purely ornamental, right? They're not a food fish, so you can't eat them. There are some complications when it comes to the type of fish that you use, because if you want to sell the fish as a food fish and harvest it and sell it, you have to have certain licenses and permits to do that. So now, if you're just growing it for your own reasons, Kara,
right,
you don't have to have that, right?
A lot of people use tilapia.
Yeah, tilapia is a very common one because it's.
My husband would be so excited to hear you say that, because I was going to tell you guys. So my husband, for years now, like, we have our own little homestead. We raise a lot of our food here, and he's been wanting to grow aquaponically for years now. And so he has finally dug a big hole. He bought a big pool from Walmart. I don't even know if that's what you're supposed to do, but he bought a big pool from Walmart. We haven't done anything with it yet, but he keeps saying tilapia. I want to grow tilapia. And we had a question about that, because we heard, like, if the water gets below 45 degrees or something like that, the fish wouldn't live. And
Tom can help him with all of this.
Okay.
For sure.
All of it.
I've definitely done my thing. And yeah, somebody just commented actually that you can sell koi too.
You can
to people. Like, I mean, people are buying them for their ornamental ponds all the time. You know,
we have another aquaponic farm. They do veggies, lettuce production here in Maryland, and the guy that runs their day-to-day operations came out to visit, and he said that, they have tilapia in one tank and koi in another. He wishes that they had gone straight koi, because they've run into problems with being able to harvest the tilapia for sale. But he also said that some of these, Asian restaurants and things that want to buy koi, they get huge, by the way. He said some of the fish that are in his tank, only a couple of years old, are like, 2 and 3 feet long. I mean, they're massive, right? And at that point, the system can get out of sync too. It's like if the fish get too overwhelmed, so you're going to have to move them out of the system if they get too much. But anyway, it's another possible revenue stream. Probably not huge, but something else to consider.
Yeah. Sorry, you want to show some more of those pictures? I can talk through some.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Let's see. This one right here is
Yeah, so that's a good one. So that is so one of the things I didn't get to mention that is another advantage of these types of growing systems is everything can be grown at waist height.
Okay.
So
Oh, nice.
I
Yes.
for a flower farmer, for somebody who's growing in the dirt,
Uh-huh.
we bend over like 10,000 times a day, right?
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Like
Kara knows this.
Kara knows.
Yeah.
Your back is killing you some days because all you've done is just bend over the whole time. So being able to grow things at waist height where it's literally I don't have to bend over to harvest. So that picture it's a bench, right? So it's a bench that's about 3.5 feet off the ground. And so everything can be grown like the flowers grow up and you literally are just reaching directly across, right? Cutting. So there in that particular picture are cosmos, marigolds. I think there's some zinnias in there.
That was taken a while ago because they're actually now all blooming.
Yeah, that was taken a little while ago. So we're blooming now. But that system there is a prime example of, first of all, how much you can fit in these systems. So on that one bench, it extends down about 45 feet, and it's maybe about 750 plants you can fit in there. So you can grow quite a lot. And that's just true of flowers in general, right? A lot of them, they're much more vertical, right? Like, so you have to have support, but you can grow like a lot crammed into a small space. And so that's the nice thing about it is we're going to be able to get a lot of stems out of a relatively small space in this greenhouse. So and so to answer, it's a question that, I think people probably have is about what can you actually grow in these systems? The more basic stuff is like sunflowers are amazing. Sunflowers are one of the best things to grow in these systems, primarily because sunflowers are what are called day neutral when it comes to photo period. They don't care if it's a short day or a long day. They'll bloom no matter what. They may grow a little bit better in certain environments, but they generally don't care. And they also have very minimal nutrient requirements. So they're kind of like the lettuce of the flower world. They'll grow on a little bit of nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. So they're really good. Zinnias, zinnias, cosmos, marigolds, the workhorse summer annuals love these environments because, again, not huge requirements on nutrients and also just very resilient, germinate really well. These are the ones that I think, we're definitely going to be able to consistently grow.
Okay.
The thing that's interesting about this system, the way that I wrote these grants is not for the easy ones. It's for the ones that are harder to grow, but are also more valuable to designers, florists, consumers. The dahlias, the lysianthus, the, ranunculus. These flowers that we as flower farmers know are the high dollar value. I mean, you can get, $2-3 a stem for dahlias and lysianthus and ranunculus are up too. So these are the flowers that if we could grow in these systems, gaining all of these benefits environmentally, but also gaining some of the growth, enhancements that you can get in these systems too.
And being able to grow them off season.
Year round. Absolutely. Wow. Huge benefit to the farmer, right? And especially to the flower farmer. Because if I can say, hey, I got dahlias in January.
Oh, yeah.
How much I could charge for that.
Yeah. So
and better quality and better all of the benefits of local yeah.
So my brain is churning here. Dahlias in January. So tell us about the setup. Like, is this aquaponic system in a big greenhouse? Do you have lights going at all hours of the day? Yeah.
So it's a 30. This one is a 30 foot by 60 foot greenhouse, which is larger for sure, and it definitely can hold quite a lot. Typically, the greenhouses that are in operation for some of these larger, farms are like acres of greenhouse. And eventually we would like to get to that place where we have that kind of scale. But for right now, it's 30 by 60. It's a great little proving ground. We can grow, I would say probably, I'm hoping in the range of 4,000 to 5,000 plants in this space. It obviously has to be heated, which is one of the challenges of growing indoors and can be very pricey and can cause some of the issues. And that's a whole other aspect of growing indoors that I think it needs to be addressed in the sustainable farming world is, right now we have a propane heater in there.
Right.
And we really don't like having to necessarily use propane because it's obviously burning fossil fuels and it's not ideal. And so we're going to eventually move to the renewable energy space. We're going to do wind and solar and all that.
Right.
But for right now, that's what we have. So It's basically 3 main benchtop areas where we're growing in what are called float trays. And that's essentially just a giant open, like little pool, right? Similar to your husband's dugout hole. It's like a
similar to the Walmart kiddie pool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like an open water area that you can grow. You can put rafts in, like styrofoam rafts. And this is typically how they grow the vegetables, right? They put the little plant in a little hole in the raft, and then they float it on the water. And then the root systems grow down into the water. Now, let me establish a really important point about growing in water. Okay, because so a lot of people go, hey, most plants don't like sitting in water. Like most plants would rot, and most plants would be unhappy in water with wet feet, right? Like there's some plants that don't mind that, but most would not like it, especially dahlias. They would rot out. Tubers would rot out in a second.
Right.
So here's the thing. What is important about understanding what plants want is that everybody thinks like, oh, CO2. Plants need to absorb CO2, right? And use sunlight to create sugars. And that's what they do. The green part of the plant wants that. The part underneath the soil, the roots, they want oxygen. They want oxygen. They're respiring, like they're dividing, and they want an oxygenated environment. And that's why there's a good example of why
that was last week
of what happens when these roots get into these
those
water
were
systems.
those were cosmos.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
The roots are extremely happy, and the reason they're extremely happy is because we are constantly oxygenating the water. We're pumping oxygen into the float trays. We're pumping oxygen into the sumps where the water, the nutrient water is being fed from. We're constantly adding as much oxygen as we can. And that is ultimately what makes the roots extremely happy. And that's true of soil as well, right? Like anybody knows that if you've got super compacted, non-porous soil, roots are not going to do well. Plants will not thrive. What you want is that, light, fluffy, loam, airy, that drains well, but has lots of oxygen flow. Roots are extremely happy in those environments. So this is a key factor when it comes to growing in these environments, is knowing that it's not that they're in water, it's that they're in hyper oxygenated water. Okay. So anyway, that's thank you for showing that picture though, because that's a demonstration of what those root systems can look like and how happy these plants are. So,
oh wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a little wasp friend that has flown into my flower studio, and it's like right here. So I'm like, oh, hello. I'm live.
God.
Okay. I would love. So you guys love to grow dahlias, and
yes.
I hear that you have something fun to show us today and teach us about.
We do. Yeah.
So this, we're going to try this, and it's going to be a little awkward, but so this right here is a dahlia that, ironically enough, just came out of the greenhouse.
Okay.
So wow. This is actually a tuber, though, that was this one that your mom gave us?
It's a Cornell. I think maybe we got it from my mom.
Yeah. So we just potted up a tuber, and this is how. So let me just say a couple of introductory things. If you grow dahlias, you know that the most traditional way to grow them is to order tubers and put tubers in the ground. They look like potatoes. They have to have a couple components to be able to successfully, throw up green growth, an eye, a stable neck associated with the tuber. It's all this lingo about dahlias. Mm-hmm. You can also grow dahlias from rooted cuttings. And essentially what you're doing in both cases is you're just simply making a clone of the plant. The tuber is a clone of the mother tuber. And a cutting, which is a green growth that's coming from the tuber, if this is divided off of here and then you're trying to grow from that, it's going to be essentially a clone of the mother plant as well. So both mechanisms work just as well. A rooted cutting is not going to have a tuber that grows more tubers, but it's going to have roots that actually grow tubers in the soil. So either way, at the end of a season, you're going to have tubers to divide. We've noticed that tubers from cuttings are a little bit smaller, because they just haven't had the kind of, they don't, and they divide as well, but you may not get as robust a tuber production if you're growing cuttings as opposed to tubers. So to make a long story short, we got into this in part because we became obsessed with dahlias, as most people do when they start growing them. Mm-hmm. I got obsessed with wanting to grow all the different varieties, which I've gotten a little smarter about now. So I'm wanting to actually streamline things now because
20,000 plus varieties. I think it would be a little, you can go down the rabbit hole a bit.
Yeah. I mean, next year we should have 20,000 plants, and it's just a lot, right? Oh, wow. So you've got to get really smart about what things sell well, what things actually are good cuts, because there's some dahlias that just don't make great cut flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the beauties of doing this is that you can increase your production of dahlias, like exponential growth, by learning how to either divide the tubers by digging them up at the end of the year, or taking cuttings, either axillary cuttings from the plant, or taking cuttings from a tuber that's actually shooting up new growth. Once we learned how to do this and we kind of got it baked in, last year we lost half of our tubers when we moved. We got a huge freeze on a whole bunch of them and had to just toss like all of our cafe au laits, everything destroyed. And it was super heartbreaking, but I just was like, okay, all the crates that we know are viable, we're going to start dividing them up, potting them up, getting cuttings, and start these cuttings immediately. And, we ended up with 10,000 dahlias.
Wow.
We probably doubled our dahlia production just from the cuttings.
Like 3 months.
In 3 months, right? So what it does, it has a couple of components. One, you're increasing your yield, but if you're a farmer that's looking to actually make money, you're not spending money on tubers. And if anyone who is listening to this has gotten into dahlias, you know that tubers are not cheap.
Yeah.
If you're buying them retail, as a matter of fact, you're going to spend a lot of money on some of these varieties. And I'm cheap. And I don't want to spend that kind of money on tubers, especially if I know how to it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Why would I not learn how to do this? Right. Exactly. So we're going to show you the quick and dirty way to do this. If you have dahlias in the ground, you are going to have to, the easiest way to do this is not through the axillary cuttings. It's through trying to pot these up and take some cuttings from the growth that's already on the tuber. So if you have them in the ground and you're living in an area where you would get a hard freeze, you're going to need to pull those tubers up from the ground anyway. So you're going to pull them up and you're going to give them at least 6 weeks of storage in a cold, 50-degree environment, to give them a bit of a resting period and a cool period before you try to do this.
They require like a dormant period.
Yeah, you can't immediately go into cuttings. I made that mistake one year and I learned the hard way that was just a really not an ideal way to do this. So you're going to just store them for a bit and baby them a little bit. Dahlias are very high maintenance. You need to check on them, make sure they're not rotting or shriveling or all the things.
We store ours in cedar shavings.
Yeah.
Cedar has an antimicrobial, antifungal property. And as long as they're good and dry and they're cleaned off and you put them in cedar shavings, you should be good. You should be good. And it's really about temperature, right? You don't want them to freeze. So you've got to have them in a temperate environment. So in any case, what was I saying? I was just going to start this. Okay. Yeah. So a couple of things about this. Now some people are really good at this. We know a flower farmer that told us how to do this, and he does everything in soil. Mm-hmm. We tried that one year and we lost every cutting that we took. I find trying to root up dahlia cuttings in soil to be very challenging. I think you get a lot of rot that way. And some people use rooting hormone. We have never done that. And that might be more successful. We generally don't. Mm-hmm. But I have found that actually trying a different medium to actually root up these cuttings is more successful.
Okay.
We started off doing Oasis horticubes, which are bad news because Oasis, basically horticubes are just flower foam in small little cubes.
I remember this from Instagram. I remember seeing this from your Instagram.
Yeah.
Was that a couple of years ago?
Yes. And here's the thing. It worked. It worked really well. I got all kinds of cuttings out of that. But once we planted them and realized that they don't biodegrade, and you're pulling up your tubers at the end of the year and all of that horticube is still attached to the tuber, I was like, we can't do this. I mean, this is like basically putting plastic in our soil. Yeah. And if we don't think that florists should use floral foam, why are we putting floral foam in our soil? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
We were on the hunt for another way to do this. We found agri-wool, which is also a semi-biodegradable, probably would take more time than I'd like, but it's a better alternative. We did that last year. It did.
It does work.
It does work, and it works beautifully. I mean, they retain water. They root up really nicely. It worked fine. This year and last year, in the spring, we bought these trays from the Aquaponics Source, which is the company that actually helped build the aquaponics system in our greenhouse. Okay. This is made with coca-coir. So it is not, it looks like soil. It's not soil, but it's also 100% biodegradable. And so it comes in pre-drilled little cubes, holes, like a tray. I think this is a 216.
128.
Oh, 128. And so it's already like pre-drilled holes, and it makes it super easy. And, you know, we have some systems that help us now with automatic watering and lighting and all that. And we'll talk about that in a minute, which a lot of people don't have that advantage, but we'll discuss it. And it's as simple as this. When you have, I don't know if anyone can see this. I can.
Yeah, I see the plant.
Yeah. Okay.
Move it.
There we go. Okay. Okay. So here you have a tuber right here, right? This is the eye where the plant is growing from here. And all you're going to do is, now I could take a cutting from this one too, and I'll show you that in a minute. That would be an axillary cutting because you're not cutting from the tuber, you're cutting from the plant, right? A little harder to get these to root in. But the ones that come from directly from the tuber are actually fairly easy. And all you do is you find the base of where it is attached to the tuber neck. And this is going to be so awkward, but you're just literally going to move it around like back and forth and wiggle it off the tuber, right? So when you're finished, I've just pulled this off. I've just pulled off the green growth that was growing at the top of that neck. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So you see, can you see?
Yes, I can see.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So all I do when I'm finished with pulling this off is I literally, now this one looks a little bit funky. I would probably pull this piece off because the leaves just look a little funky. And she's like doing this weird growing down, but that's okay. I don't really care about that because I could cut that off later. What I care about is that this here, where these nodes are above where I've pulled off the tuber, that's where the rooting is going to start from. So all I do literally is pull that off and simply stick it in the plug tray. You know, this is so awkward. Okay.
I know.
So I would
literally,
I would just stick it in the plug tray like that, and we're done.
Oh wow.
Literally, that's how simple it is. Now it takes around. We have systems that we got that are, we can actually post this if people are interested in this kind of information. These systems now, which making seeding and rooting so much easier because it's all just like set it and forget it. It feels like it's Ron Popeil, like a, you know, like an appliance, right? You don't have to even think about it. You fill this tray, you stick it in the system, and it has a tank of water from underneath. And it's all integrated so that it's on a timer. And so it floods the system and then it drains it and it floods it and it drains it. And then the lighting is right above that, the LED lighting, and it's getting the light it needs on a timer as well.
It's almost like a miniature hydroponic nursery.
Yeah.
Basically.
Wow.
So we have shelves of those. I mean, if this is 128 cell, I can get 4 trays across one level and I've got 4 levels.
So it's a little more than 2,000 cuttings you could have in one nursery. Right.
So it's been a game changer for our business because what it has meant is that we've been able to do pretty high intensity volume in terms of cuttings and not have to be fussing constantly on them. When I was doing them in my grow room at our old house, it was this tiny little room and I was, you know, under lights and they were on shelves and they were, you know, there was fungus gnats and I had to go in and make sure I watered it just right. And it was just a pain.
Yeah.
This system is not a pain. It's about as easy as it could get, which has made our lives so much easier. Because we also seeded all of our hardy annuals for spring in those systems. Literally put seeds in trays, put the trays in there and walked away. And, you know, 4 weeks later, we have plants that can go in the ground.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, really, really nice.
You know, it's one of those things that we encourage a lot of farmers to do, which is automate as much as you can, because ultimately we need to be more efficient. We have to do more with less manpower. And so these systems are, I mean, just absolute game changers for us. I'm happy to share the link for these systems. So they're called Growasis nurseries and they're about $1,500 for one system, but that literally will pay for itself. If you think about like, hey, if I sold, you know, a couple of trays of cuttings, you'd already make up that money. I mean, it's like, so if you,
it's a wise investment.
It is, it really is. It's an investment in just your time too, and your efficiency. So anyway, that's one thing that's really sort of, made this even more lucrative and helpful for us.
What's been a game changer for me is that, of course, we have access to wholesale, sourcing. And so, on occasion, like this particular year, we are bringing in some wholesale tubers because I needed to get guaranteed production on certain varieties that I really wanted to hone in on. But I've also, what I did strategically this year is picked from our field the varieties that I knew were true to type, that I could easily identify, and that were really growing robust, beautiful blooms. I tagged those plants and I said, I'm going to limit next year. I'm going to get it down to about 15 varieties that are tried and true varieties that I know are going to sell well. I could sell every flower I produce because they're guaranteed income for us. And rather than having our dahlia field currently this year was just like, we didn't have any time. So we literally just threw every tuber and every cutting in the ground because I was like, just get them in the ground. We don't have time to figure out what is what. This new field, which will hopefully house another 10,000 dahlias, is a more intentional, focused, more production field in which I'm really honing in on the things that I know are going to be smart for our business.
Right.
And so some of those I got sourced, but the others are going to be essentially cuttings that I'm taking from tubers that I'm pulling out of the ground, and I'm going to start in January. And by spring, mid-May, early June, and it's time to plant all of these, I'm hoping to have had enough production of those blooms that I will have saved myself thousands of dollars in costs associated with tuber buying. So it has been a game changer for me. I would love to have our business go in this direction to be able to assist and give people access to rooted cuttings, because I think that it's an easier thing to also for a lot of gardeners to plant, because it's like you're planting a plug tray.
It's a plug.
Right. Okay.
It's not, you're planting roots. You don't have to worry about a tuber rotting because you've overwatered it too soon. I mean, tubers can just be kind of finicky to deal with, especially for an inexperienced gardener.
Right.
And if you had something in a plug tray that just had roots and it was just like
Anna's like me. I saw your hand go up, Anna.
Yeah.
You didn't even grow sunflowers.
Commentary. This year, we tried to get Anna to grow sunflowers and zinnias. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I don't think they grew, though. But we're going to get her growing some flowers, though. She's in Southern California and tip-top of Mexico.
Oh, you're in the perfect climate. You have no excuses, Anna.
We'll get you.
There were a lot of happy birds in my backyard.
Yeah.
That could be an issue. That could be an issue.
Yeah.
Oh no, they started to grow. We had like these little tiny things, and then they disappeared. Everything.
Maybe someone munched on them.
Yeah, you might have bunnies too.
I'm gonna try.
That could be an issue.
Yeah. One of the things that I think that we and a lot of flower farmers are trying to do is, and before we hopped on this live, we were discussing a little bit about how Tom and I have become sort of obsessive about business and what it means to actually run a profitable flower farming business. It's not an easy thing to do. We have some strategic disadvantages from import flowers, which are being sold and brought here with very little. It's almost impossible to compete on those price points.
Right.
And so, for flower farmers here, focusing on those kinds of flowers that you can grow that are not easily shippable, you're trying to pivot towards things that are going to sell well, that you have a strategic advantage from a local bloom. And dahlias are definitely one of those flowers. They do not ship well. People are trying to ship them, I don't think successfully. You're never going to find an imported dahlia or even a dahlia that's been driven on a plane or flown on a plane. It's going to look the same as a dahlia in a bucket that's come from a local farm. It's just not possible.
The revenue is telling us that too, right? Like the demand is just insane for these flowers, right? And so everything that we've learned over the last couple of years has been, you cannot grow enough dahlias as a local farm, because it's just one of those products that, first of all, you can make a lot of money on per stem, but also it's a higher quality product, and they're always going to be better.
And not everybody can do it really well. I mean, I wouldn't say Tom and I do it really well per se. We still have so much to learn.
Always learning.
But we've kind of honed in, and I think Tom's got a particular advantage in just having that science mindset. So when things aren't working, I mean, he can easily, I'll be like, what is going on? Like, what is this thing that's, and we can, well, he usually, he can usually figure out what might be helpful. And then we just, if something's failing, we just have this motto in our business of fail fast and move on.
Right.
Well, before the show, I just came up with an idea for you guys. Before the show, you were talking about what kind of videos you could make for Bloom TV. And I think you have a lot of stuff that is so different than what everyone else is doing. So documenting all that you're doing would be a great topic for a series, because I mean, everyone's into dahlias and what you're doing, not everyone else is doing. You've been documenting, you've been learning. So you have a lot out there.
Yeah. I would love to see, I know how to grow zinnias and cosmos, but I have no idea how to do that aquaponically. I would love to see the journey from what you do to start to the process. I think that'd be really fun for Bloom TV for you guys to do and show that.
Yeah. I think that was one of our initial intents. Obviously because it is something completely unique and novel. Like like I said, nobody is really doing this on a commercial scale. And so I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I appreciate you guys acknowledging that, because that's the whole thing. Like it's flown under the radar for so long, and I think it's starting to have a little bit of a renaissance in terms of just realizing the benefits of it. But when it comes to flowers, like, I mean, we're just seeing the results right now, but like, it'll work. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of how. Like,
and truth be told is that the pathway to having a huge aquaponics system, I mean, most people don't have an extra $200,000 sitting around to build a huge system. So the entry point is hard. And we understand that. I mean, we wouldn't have had a commercial scale system right now had we not gotten that grant. Right. I mean, we would have had to take out a huge loan to be able to finance it. And I don't know that we would have been able to do that. Certainly not that and buy a new property. I mean, so, part of this is sort of like Tom's like very much a believer in innovation. He's very much willing to take risks. Part of this is just, we're kind of going out on a limb here to think that this might be the beginning, hopefully, of making some real headway into getting the United States government through grants and other things to be able to support more large scale sustainability projects for floriculture. And someone's got to try it, right? Right. And so we're going to try it. And
the focus has been on food, with good reason. I mean, we obviously need to improve our food systems, right? Like we cannot feed the population on traditional agriculture anymore. I mean, it's unsustainable. We've known that for a long time. And so what they're starting to do is to grow, first of all, indoors in these systems, but they're also growing vertically, which is something that's extremely powerful. I read a statistic out there that you can grow the same amount of food in a 2-acre vertical indoor farm that you can grow on like 700 acres.
Really?
So,
wow.
Yeah, it's truly about sort of, rethinking just how we grow and using different methods and innovating in different ways, using AI to control all of the different, things that you can control, the light, the CO2, the temperature, the nutrients, all of it. There's some really fascinating things happening.
And here's the other thing. I think all this stuff is really high tech and cool. And there's still a part of me that's always going to want to have my hands in dirt.
Right.
And so I think that the other thing is a lot of people come to this profession or this love of flowers because there is something very soul fulfilling about being in nature. And, being in a greenhouse, which feels much more sort of, cold and not very naturey, that's amazing. And I think there's all a place for that. But I also think there's also never going to be a time when I'm like, I don't want to field grow anything.
Yeah, no,
right.
Because and most people who don't for me, there's a spiritual component of growing flowers and being in nature that would never be met by just greenhouse growing.
Here's the ultimate goal. Here's what you can do, because there's one thing that you probably will really never be able to make sense working in a greenhouse environment is perennials. The nature of it is that once you put it in a spot, you're not moving it, right? Like it's going to be there, and it needs to be there for like 10 years, right? Like, and to be truly productive too. So you got your entire huge field of peonies and hydrangeas and all of those beautiful perennials that you love, and then you grow your annuals in environments like this. And so you get the best of both worlds, really. I mean, perennials ultimately, when we give advice to new flower farmers, we're like, and Kara, you just mentioned how you planted 1,000 perennials. Invest in perennials because there's just so much less work and so much more, like, just you get more bang for your buck.
Yeah, like that's kind of our retirement plan,
right?
Is to start investing now, so that we, 10 years from now when we can't walk because we've destroyed our bodies flower farming, we're going to be able to just have things that, like, the gifts that keep on giving.
Tell us, what are some of your favorite perennials that you've planted that you grow?
I would love to pick your brain about perennials too, Kara, because I watched you plant all of those perennials. Yeah, I mean, I love peonies, of course. It's kind of an obvious one, but I like, heptacodium. I want to get on my farm. I love all kinds of spirea, viburnum.
Me too.
Hellebore. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with
hellebore.
Oh God, couldn't grow enough of it. Franja, I love as a perennial. I've got about 10,000 fancy daffodils in this house.
I love
another favorite.
Yeah.
So one that I grow that has kind of been, I don't know, I don't want to say the word new to a lot of people, but like I love penstemon. I just really love penstemon.
Yes.
Onyx and pearls and blackbeard. Like it has to be, like I grow those too and they get huge. Like not every penstemon is the same, but the onyx and pearls and the blackbeard, I mean, goodness, my stems were a good 3 feet tall. And I planted the plant, a plug, 1 year, and by the next year it had tripled in size. And I love it because I actually have it behind me right here.
Well, it dries really nicely too, doesn't it, Kara?
Yeah, I was going to show you. Yeah, it dries really nicely, and I think designers would really love it. I love it because I've used it in wedding bouquets. I use it in boutonnieres. I use it in fall wreaths. It's a good perennial in my book.
And you know what? Another great one too. I love anything that has like multiple use, right? It's a great flower, but you can dry it, whatever. Sedum. I don't.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could grow 8,000, autumn joy sedum plants, and I'd be happy.
Basically,
I've got some dried right here.
There it is.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I have a lot of people, I'm sure, will want to reach out to you. So what's the best way to ask questions? Your Instagram account, or we have your Instagram there?
Yeah, we are on Facebook, except I rarely go on Facebook. Instagram is where we land almost every day.
The website has a contact for us as well, so you can reach out. That just emails us. Hopefully, if anyone really they can get a hold of us if they need to. By a lot of different ways.
It's not hard,
and we're happy to always respond and engage. We're good about that because we know it's important to connect.
I can't wait to see your videos for you to document everything.
Really, seriously, think about the aquaponics thing. I mean, me as someone that grows a lot of plants, I would dive into your videos of aquaponics because that's just not something we can.
A lot of people would.
No,
that's all I need to hear.
We're going to get on it. And one other thing, can I just do a really quick plug for something? So for anyone that does grow dahlias, I wanted to just show you guys really quick. This is something I just did this year, and I wanted to show you. I just started preserving my dahlias in silica.
Ooh, beautiful.
That's a cafe au lait.
Wow.
That just
is fantastic.
Right. And these dahlias are basically just being preserved.
Yeah.
Right. You see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So did you dry all of them in silica? Because I dried dahlias, but I just hung them to dry. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, so when you hang them, we've hung some too, and they shrivel a little bit more. With the silica, they preserve a little bit more naturally.
Yeah.
And they don't lose their shape
that's
as much.
amazing.
Yeah. It's a little bit more work, and the silica is a little bit messy, but it is nice. It works really well.
And here's a purple one for you, Kara.
Oh, I love it. Beautiful. little, I mean, I can just see those in a hairpiece.
Yeah.
Right now, like glue them to there. I'll have to try silica. That is so fun.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yay! Awesome. Okay, well, Tom, Sarah, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So much fun talking with you. And I just want to remind our audience that is watching either live, and we have several people that watch on the replay, Bloom TV is offering a free month to view the content on there. And Tom and Sarah have a video talking about their journey on there. Here you go. If you go to bloomtvnetwork.com and subscribe, just use the code FLOWERS, and that will get you 1 free month of Bloom TV.
Yeah.
So fun.
Let's thank our sponsors for this show.
Yes.
We have built the world's first flower-focused streaming network, bringing the public educational and entertaining shows that highlight the magic of flowers. Learn how to heal through flowers, cook with flowers, design your living space to reflect nature, make crafts using florals, sustainably garden, and so much more. We are your network for all things floral. Join us at Bloom TV as we help bring beauty to the lives of people and the planet through nature's most beautiful creation, the flower.
Thank you, everyone. Be sure to join us next week, next Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we would love to be here with you. Why, Kara?
Because everything is better with flowers and friends. Thank you, guys.